Hello and welcome to FGC Philosophy. I'm the philosopher, and this is where we talk about leveling up inside and outside the virtual arena every day. Of course, I am joined by my co-host, the Mega Max Star. We are going to talk about esports today. There's a lot that is going on in the world of esports. In case you haven't been seeing a lot of the articles, on one side, we have some studies coming out that esports is actually increasing some statistics in school. And we'll go over that. And then also just the whole thing with the Olympics and esports. And we'll get to that as well. There's a couple of good articles that I have that I can cite, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. Before we get into that, though, I think it's important to talk about, what's been going on with us, what has been happening. I will let you go first, Mega Max Star. What's new in the world of you and with other things, competitive games, whatever is taking your interest right now?
I just came back from a Yu-Gi-Oh! Regional in Detroit this last Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday. But that was a whole lot of fun. The whole trip was great. My two friends that went along with me had a lot more fun than I did because they actually played well and they did well. It was 9 rounds of Swiss. And I think we played like 7 or 6 and then we dropped. But I think my one friend he got like 3 or 4 wins, and then the other one got like 2 or 3. I only got 1, but I was playing a super rogue kind of deck. So a deck that was like very non-meta. But overall, it was a lot of fun. And the best part about those events is actually like getting trades and getting cards that you need, because you run into a lot of people, so there's a good chance that those people have the cards that you want for the decks that you're building, or there are these things called staples, which are cards that are basically generically good for every deck. So I got a good amount of staples for just in general, and a lot of really good trade value out of a lot of stuff. So overall, like, I came out like pretty happy about the event in general.
That's really interesting to me. So I like finding parallels and things, and I find it kind of fascinating in the world of, like, I don't know anything about trading card games in like regards to competitive play. And I think it's interesting that, like in fighting games, you play a bunch of casuals to get better, but and obviously I'm sure that's the same case with this, but also like your deck can physically get better as well because you're going to these locals and trading with people. I kind of like that idea. It makes me think of Pokemon a little bit, where you're like trading Pokemon to like fill your roster up a little bit. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of really cool people that you get to learn about, because you could be running the same deck as somebody, but they could be running a different kind of variant, and it's very interesting because then you get their philosophy on like why they're running a said variant and why they're playing it the way they are. With some decks, you could be running, because for Yu-Gi-Oh, the max amount of cards that you want to run that you can run is 3. So a lot of times, like, your best card you want to run 3 ofs. But sometimes there are people that run like a 1 of or something, or a 2 of something else. So it's very interesting getting those different kind of philosophies of what people are running and why they are running it and why it works and why it doesn't work. For example, I'll use a very, very simple example. There's a card in the game called Upstart Goblin, and the card is very simple. It's a spell card. You play it, and the effect is you draw 1 card and your opponent gains 1,000 life points. So overall, pretty good. And the maximum or the minimum amount of cards you can run is 40. So in a way, if you run that card, if you draw that card in your main opening hand, you essentially are running a 39 card deck, which then makes your deck more consistent. It makes your deck more consistent because you have less cards and you're getting into the cards that you need. But if you're running 41 and you're running an Upstart Goblin, there's no point. You just get rid of it, because the whole point of it is because you want to run 39. But I ran across a dude that was running 42 cards with an Upstart Goblin, and he went through his philosophy with me, where you can go through a side deck in between rounds and you can switch in cards, and he wanted to use that as a good fodder to put in a side deck. And I'm like, I guess that works, but at the same time, I can't necessarily agree with it, because if you draw it, it's not worth like running it in your deck. So it's interesting things like that, where you run into some very cool and interesting philosophies and ways of life that people have. that is like the most thing I was into kind of recently. I haven't been doing anything too crazy other than that. So other than our regular locals and all that, we did Aurora Blitz, but that was like way back. And I guess just to like a small recap of Aurora Blitz is I got 4th in Dragon Ball FighterZ and I got 2nd in Samurai Showdown. So I'm pretty happy about those results. I did really bad at Smash Bros, but I didn't practice that game in the slightest, so I'm not upset about that at all. But the group that we were with, it was great and we had a lot of fun. So it's a very small recap that works out for the best.
Yeah, that's awesome. You coming to Bronco Beatdown, the Smash tournament at Western?
Yeah, I plan on it. Plan on helping you out with that one.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
And I know we just you just set up the reschedule because we ran into the slight issue of it running at the same time of Big House.
Ooh, so, yeah. I'm gonna see if I can go to Big House actually, because that'll.
I don't know if I'll go to Big House actually. If I'm going to Youmacon this year, I probably won't go to Big House just because it's very close to each other, and I can really only afford so many big events at a time.
I wouldn't be going to Youmacon if I wasn't commentating, probably, because that is pretty pricey. So I get
I'm gonna
that.
Try and shoot for that. I know I still got to get that commentary reel done, but
still apply. Actually, also, well, while I'm here, I'll quickly plug Youmacon because it's an anime convention. It's in Detroit. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be at the Kobo Center again, and they have a fighting game tournament called the Battle Opera, the Youmacon Battle Opera, YBO. And they were gracious enough to let me commentate that. I did it last year for like 16 hours. I'm going to do it again this year, bringing my family this time, which again, super grateful. But it's really fun. So if you like anime conventions and you like fighting game tournaments, you need to check out one or both of those things. You have to get into the anime convention to get to the Battle Opera. It's kind of like a side thing, but yeah, it's super exciting. I can't wait for that. Big House I probably won't be able to make, but I want to see if I can connect with the people from Big House and learn some things, because like we're trying to do more Smash tournaments, and it's interesting because like to kind of get into stuff that's going on with me, it is a lot of Smash Brothers, even though I don't really play the game as much as I used to. Like I used to play Smash Brothers so much, and now I kind of just like observe the scene. Like I'm almost like a Reddit I can't think of the term, like
a lurker.
Lurker. Yes, thank you, a lurker. And I'm just observing it grow, and now I'm trying to facilitate the FGC or the Smash community. Both really, but at work I'm kind of facilitating the Smash community because they're so big and they have that existing platform in our area, and it's been like a wild ride trying to learn how to grow a scene, grow a community, do the production for it as well. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it's kind of all coming together now, and I'm really excited for it. I'm actually glad that we pushed it back 2 weeks because it gave me more time to prepare and market and learn what we can do better. Because I'm hoping I don't know if it's going to be for college students only right now, but we're looking at doing some weeklies, and then I want to do more Smash Brothers tournaments in the future because I think it's just it'd be really fun to be a part of that, and try to get some more commentators and get some good players coming out here and maybe level up my Smash a little bit, because then I'll be around a lot more Smash players, so I'll be forced to learn more Smash. So it'll be actually really fun because my Incineroar and Snake game is pretty strong. I want to work on that. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that's going on with me is trying to grow a scene and building it with college students who are huge gamers and a bunch of adults who are either casual gamers or not gamers at all, and trying to be that liaison between the two people and make something that's never been done before. So it's like on one side it's super amazing because we're paving the road for like some form of like college esports production, not just like, there's tons of teams that are competing like Robert Morris and like Harrisburg and stuff like that. But in regards to like actually doing a production, hosting tournaments, bringing people here, learning about sponsorships and all that kind of stuff as an event organizer, and being able to like get multiple people to get experience in this field is like kind of bonkers to me. And like, it's hard to wrap my head around it. I think I spend too much time just doing stuff rather than like processing what I'm actually doing. But yeah, on one side I'm like always super nervous because I want things to be perfect. On the other side I'm like just trying to figure out how I can make things better and continue to grow. But luckily, things are looking up for esports. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world of university, like just college and school in general. And I want to go over this article. This is there's two that I have. There's one by the Observer, which talks about the Olympics, and we'll get into that in just a second. But the other thing is just on the school level, and not just in America, but this is worldwide. So I work on stuff locally and now kind of statewide, but esports in general is growing nationwide. And so I just want to read this article. I will post it in the show notes for you as well because it's pretty good. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think this is a UK article, but they did a lot of studies in all the continents that have people on them, and they talked about over 70% of schools are now considering introducing competitive gaming to its curriculum in some shape or form. And obviously, I work at a university that's already doing that. I've talked to a lot of high schools that want to do that or already are doing that in some capacity and trying to do it better. So it's crazy because like you have North America, Latin America, the Asian Pacific, Europe, Middle East. Speaking of Middle East, kind of a side note, Tekken and Street Fighter, they have some strong players over there, like ridiculous.
What's going on with
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with
legit,
that.
like, yeah, players like Arslan Ash just coming out of nowhere, just kicking ass and taking names.
There's another player that just got sponsored that's better than him.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name is though. So, but I just remember Arslan Ash because of Evo, and I remember he was, I think he was in Combo Breaker too.
He got like top 3.
Yeah, I was about to say he like kicked ass, man, and it was like, and obviously it's just like he's from somewhere that you just wouldn't expect because it's not popular in terms of esports for people to come from the Middle East or in those like areas to be good at esports just because you don't see it as much.
Yeah.
Especially with like areas with League of Legends, right? Like we always get those the wild card teams, and they're like from like Brazil and places like that, and they're still like okay, but you don't really hear much about the Middle East or those kind of areas, which is very interesting, and it's a wake up call kind of that it's worldwide. It really is.
Yeah, totally. And then on that same study, it talks about 1 in 5 schools are already have a dedicated esports program, and then an incredible 71% are thinking about doing the same. And this really isn't surprising to me. I mean, even before I dig too deep into the article itself, just from a personal level, if schools were supporting esports, just for a multitude of reasons, it would be great because that's something that I've always been fascinated with is gaming. And like, I've been competitive, but like as a younger kid, I was like to kind of tie this into another video I watched. Did you watch the League of Legends tilt? What type of tilt are you?
I didn't watch it, but I did the survey actually. And I was still like super interested in it because it really did. It described me to a T. Which is hilarious.
If you guys haven't watched the video, I recommend it. The video is pretty funny. Or take the test. I'll try to put links in the show notes as well for you guys because it's actually really, really good. And I think it's like a good starting point for a conversation. And I'm hoping at some point I can show this at the university arena and actually have a conversation with like students and staff about this because it's really, really fascinating. But to my point, I would be Lord DGAF. If you don't know what that is, I recommend you look it up. Basically, the short version is you don't care about things. And you kind of like what I would do a lot of times is like if something got too hard, I kind of just like, it's whatever. I don't care. Like I'd convince myself I didn't care basically. And it would have been cool to have somebody support me and say like, hey, this is something that's doable. You should put more effort into it. And it's really fascinating to me that this is the era that we're in. I'm actually in that world where we're, getting that happening, but just like seeing people talking about it and it's happening worldwide, that's pretty bonkers to me.
It wasn't even like conceived a decade ago in a way. Yeah. Where like we weren't even thinking about it. I remember back when I was in high school, around my like junior, sophomore, honestly, yeah, probably like freshman through senior year. I came from a really small school, but I was really hoping I could maybe start up a league like club, but I obviously never was able to, but like it was in my dreams where it's like, dude, it'd be so cool if I could do a League of Legends club for the high school. But coming from a small school, they don't have a lot of budget, and the budget's not going into computers. So the computers are already like not great. And then of course, like you have to get a teacher to sponsor you, and we don't have that many teachers to sponsor in the first place. So, but it, in a way, it was a pipe dream, but it's definitely an achievable dream for a lot of people right now in terms of their schools.
Yeah.
Just because like it's a lot more popular, it's becoming a lot more worldwide. It's actually kind of funny. My just recently I was talking to my parents, and they were telling me they were talking to me about that recent really big Fortnite tournament that happened. I don't follow Fortnite myself too much, but I at least like I understood what they were going on about because of that tournament that happened and that kid that won. And they were like, that's crazy. Like, this stuff is huge. And my mom's like, this is a real thing. And I'm like, yeah, it really is. Like, it's funny to me when my parents come and talk to me about it. Like, I don't have to bring up the subject. Like, it's already in the circle. And it's just funny to me thinking about that. But it's cool. It really is. To just think that everything that, like, as a kid for me in high school, that was kind of like a pipe dream, is a pretty achievable dream for a lot of kids right now in high school.
The thing that's like really important to like pay attention to is that a lot of schools are getting into this, like, and I think the reason they're justifying, paying for equipment now is because it is a good recruiting tool for like high schools and for colleges. Because to not go into the numbers, like colleges, universities in general, like their numbers are lower. Their times are changing. Not as many kids are valuing a degree, nor is it as cheap as it used to be. It's like twice as expensive, but it's like half as worth it to get a degree nowadays. Those numbers, don't quote me on those numbers, but it just feels a lot less worth getting a degree because you can learn through so many different facets. So I think that the fact that universities and high schools are getting into esports is a good thing. And they're also like, one of the things they're kind of toting is that it's helped kids prepare for life beyond education. And one of the things that's really important for me that I like to talk about is the fact that I think there's a lot of personal growth, personal development that you can get from gaming because, especially fighting games for me, you can't get better without losing. And that's an important life lesson for kids to have nowadays, especially with how easy and accessible things are for most people that are younger than us or around your age, even younger. Like, life is very accessible. Like, everything is a la carte, your food, your social media, like interacting with people, your content consumption, YouTube, Netflix, so many other, HBO Go, so on. Like, the list is like infinite now. You can get everything, day one delivery, but growth doesn't work that way. You can't just win. You can't, unless you're EA, you can't buy yourself to victory. That's an inside joke for gamers who understand that. But yeah, it's an important life lesson that I think, like, not just my concern is a lot of schools are exploiting esports and they don't understand it. And they're like, yeah, let's hop on the esports train. Let's do this thing that kids are doing.
Yeah, they're gonna jump on it from a very, very surface level.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've said since the get-go is that there's a lot of personal growth that we need to talk about and remind these kids because, realistically, not every one of these kids is going to be a pro. It's like football or anything else. Not all of them are going to be the best. It's just not possible. But all of them can take those life lessons and move on to other things. And I think that's one of the biggest things when they talk about in this article that, life beyond education, and then also developing in-demand job skills. It's not just like, not everyone is going to want to be a game player, like to quote boomers, not everyone's going to want to be a professional game player, but they can take lessons, tilting, learning emotional control, not getting so upset with people around you, your coworkers, your teammates. That's important. And that can be taught via gaming if they have a good coach or a good mentor or a good, manager, whatever that might be.
Right. And in the same vein too, like, I mean, kids that play football in high school, they're not, obviously most of the time they don't go to college just to play football or end up at the NFL. But in those very surface levels where they're playing football, soccer, track, you learn how to train yourself, improve yourself, work on your own person, and you get to find out who you truly are actually in those aspects where I did when I was in high school and like all of middle school, I did like almost all sports that I could try to do. And in those veins, I found out like what sports I really like, what sports I don't like at all. And then I also find some new things that I enjoy and some new things that you can like learn from. Like I wouldn't have learned how much I actually like enjoyed golf if it wasn't for me trying out to play golf like my sophomore, junior year of high school. So in that same vein, right, like if high schools just add these clubs for the kids to try, you know, they don't know what they will like until they hit that, right? So if they're starting like a fighting game club, right, like you might run into a fighting game that you've never heard of, but like once you try it, you're like, wait, this game's really fun. I really like this game. And then it kind of goes off from there. And it honestly, like, it can form you as a person in the end, because I don't talk about this much, but a lot of my life was in a way roundabout turned around because of League. And everybody, like a lot of people that I've met, my current roommates, my current best friends in the world, were because of League of Legends. And if I didn't learn about League of Legends around my high school time and learned that these people in my circle played League, I wouldn't have gotten into my friend circle and I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now. So it's those small things that like, obviously there wasn't a League club in high school, but it was a topic of discussion. It was a topic where we all could relate to. And when you give that ability for kids to join in and be a part of a circle, it adds to these these things that they can do, and overall like reflects what they can do in their future, or reflects what they do in the future. So yeah. It's crazy to think about stuff like that, where those small little things can really add up. They really can.
Yeah, those experiences can make a huge difference, you know? Like some of my closest friends are people that I met in college. And in college, like that age range, if you're in college, is like a really impressionable time because you're kind of finding yourself for the first time, especially if you're away from your family, if you're in a different city or state, you're really finding yourself. And it's interesting because I've made so many friends through gaming, and I'm similar to you where I've had games like Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and League of Legends. I've been playing that, I found out, since like at least 2012 because I have skins from back then.
Yep, I have skins from 2012, baby.
Yeah, so I have so many friends that I'm still friends with, or coworkers that I still have contact with because of gaming, especially since I moved around a lot. I've lived in like 4 or 5 different states, and I maintain contact with the people that play games because I can still have experiences with them despite the distance. And local, the first time I started doing like a local event, that was a game changer for me too. I didn't know those type of things even existed until I went to like a fighting game local in Huntsville, Alabama. And I was like, this is crazy. A lot of the people were kind of jerks and like elitist, but the idea of it was really cool. And like I tried it out again in San Diego, and they were way more welcoming. And I got to see like some of the best Marvel players in Southern California. But yeah, it's insane. And then what's really cool to me is that in these studies, and actually there's another article that's being quoted inside this article by The Gamer. And they speak with the High School Esports League, HCEL. And I'm familiar with them because I've talked to them, and there's some things we're working on with them that might happen in the future. We don't know just yet. But there's some studies that say that there's an average increase in their GPA, in some of the students' GPAs, by 1.4 points. And then like a 94% improvement in attendance. So more students are going to school. It might be because they're playing video games, but it doesn't matter. They're getting in school.
What matters is that they're coming. They're there. Like, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And I still have some gripes about schools in general and the way they're structured, you know, because I didn't have a great experience, and I think that things can be done better. But that's besides the point. You know, for the schools that are doing good and have an opportunity to help these kids grow to be the leaders of this country one day, or other countries, you know, gaming is kind of helping with that, and it's increasing their GPA. And I have my own suspicions as to why that might be. But I will save that for now. But it's amazing to see. It's amazing to see how much gaming is growing, and it's not just growing from the perspective of schools, but just nationwide, to where it's being recognized parallel to the Olympics, which is like the highest of the high in terms of competitive display. And it's crazy that we're getting to that point. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that esports is not officially part of the Olympics yet.
Yeah.
It is essentially running along. It's almost like the side tournament. It's like someone was like, hey, the Olympics is a huge thing, but no one can stop us from hosting a tournament alongside the Olympics. And I think that's one important thing to really clarify, like up front. But there's $500,000 on the line here for these two games. And just for a little bit of backstory, it's the Intel. They're a world partner, so they're partnering up with Tokyo 2020, and they're doing Street Fighter, which I've mentioned several times in the past, with Capcom really leaning into esports, and this does not surprise me at all. So I'm hoping that there's some like documentation of me talking about this in the past. Then there's also Rocket League.
That one surprises me the most.
I'm not surprised, and here's why. And the article actually reflects this. The one reason I use Rocket League a lot is it's super simple. It's a really simple to understand game, but it's different enough to be entertaining. Like, no one wants to really see Madden or NBA 2K or like NHL. Like, those are fun games, and they are in the realm of esports, but I don't think they can hold the numbers in terms of viewership. But Rocket League is this game where anybody can hop in and immediately understand what's going on. It's like the Smash Brothers of sports games.
It is perfect for the spectators
because it has a low skill ceiling, a low skill floor, and a high skill ceiling. You can hop into the game and you can immediately score a goal and like win some games, but it takes a little bit of effort to get to like where the masters are. So it's such an accessible game. It's almost like a party game, and it has party modes. And I think that's why this game is doing so well. Plus, and this is something that I talked about too, was Unreal or Epic purchasing the IP Rocket League. And I was like, why are they doing this? Why would they buy this game? Like, it's a popular game, but what's their angle? And I would assume that it was something like this. And it's crazy to see that, So real quick, I'll read a little bit of the excerpts from this article. This is from the Examiner. This is Esports, the Observer, the Esports Observer. But the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, is a worldwide sponsor. Intel has teamed up with them to announce an Intel World Open, an esports competition that will take place in the run-up to the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. So each game is going to be rewarded. The winners are going to be rewarded $250,000, equaling up to a grand total of $500,000, which is a little bit low to me compared to like, Fortnite or something like that.
Dota 2.
Yeah, Dota 2. Exactly. Dota 2 has the highest number right now. They broke the record. A lot of people think it's Fortnite, but it's not. Fortnite has the biggest individual payout, but Dota has the biggest payout, period. They beat them like a week later after that Fortnite tournament, but they didn't get as much press because it's not as sensational, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, this is going to be held in July 2020 through 2024. What's kind of cool is they're doing online qualifiers, which could go either way. But qualifiers will allow anyone from the participating countries to compete for a chance to be named to his or her national team. So basically represent America, Asia, China, whatever country it is. And then with the live qualifying event being held in, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's in Poland. It's in a city in Poland in June. So that's going to be really exciting because it's going to be kind of like this, not rat race, but this event, this league that you're going to be doing online, and then you be a representative of your country, and then you represent your country at this tournament. It's kind of like the Evo, but bigger, because Evo is, in my opinion, like professional grassroots. The people that do it, they started from the beginning. They've been doing it since like the arcade days, but now they're growing into, now Street Fighter is going to be on this event. I don't know where it's going to be televised just yet, other than Twitch. I assume it's going to be on some cable network channel, but I think the numbers on Twitch are going to be higher either way. But the crossover is going to be very fascinating to see what's going to happen there.
It's a pretty good chance it'll be on the E-League channel.
Yep. They do reference E-League in the article.
Because it's Street Fighter 5, I would, at least for Street Fighter 5, I would bet that it would be on the E-League like TV channel. And I remember back when I was living with my parents and we did have cable TV, just checking out the E-League channel, and it was really interesting just seeing them doing what would you call them? Splits, like the spring or summer splits, just constantly doing stuff with Street Fighter and having players like Punk and like or not Punk, Smug and I'm gonna think of another name. I'm gonna get it. Filipino champ. Haha. There we go. And like them playing and stuff and them doing like constant like little bracket tournaments. It's really interesting seeing that. So I think it is a very smart choice to go with Rocket League. Rocket League is definitely like such a good like it wouldn't have been the like first choice for me because it's not the first thing that I think of. But when you think about something that's simple and easy to watch as a spectator sport, Rocket League is genius. It's genius and it's perfect for that like thing. Street Fighter, as much as I like I'm fine with Street Fighter, I feel like there might be I don't know.
There's definitely better games, better fighting games than Street Fighter. I just
don't know, like, because in terms of a hype level and then in terms of as a spectator, I personally enjoy like Tekken way more. But Tekken may be even more difficult to understand because it's a 3D field. Personally, I understand, but I almost feel like there could have been better choices, at least in those two choices. But I'm sure in the future we'll probably get better stuff. At first I was thinking Smash, but Smash in of itself is already confusing as hell just because it's a rule set made by the community. So that's already would become an issue with Nintendo. I'm excited to see what they'll do with it, even though it's going to be quite a while before we see anything, just because it'll be 2020 in the summer. So we literally got like a year before we see anything. That'll be actually interesting to see too, because it's possible Street Fighter V like might die out, not because I'm gonna think it's dying out right now, but if there's no new content within a year, like are people gonna still play the game? I don't know. And I mean Rocket League seems like it'll just never die. I always hear about Rocket League here and there, and I don't personally follow like the competitive scene that much, so I have no idea how much the game is actually changing content wise. So but I could probably take a look at the numbers now and be like, okay, well, that's actually pretty good right now. By the way, here's a question: Rocket League is crossplay with the PS4 platform? I know that, but are they crossplay with the Xbox platform?
I believe so, because the issue was originally PS4 was the one that was not crossplay. I
thought it was originally PS4 was crossplay with the PC.
I remember PS4 being an issue with crossplay on like certain games. Maybe that was Fortnite I'm thinking of.
Fortnite was the biggest one.
Yeah. I'm not sure, actually.
Because I think that's the part that's interesting, because I know Street Fighter at the very least is crossplay with PC and PS4. I don't know. Nobody really plays Street Fighter on Xbox anyways, so I guess that's like a thing. But I think that's also something that should be looked into because it's in a Olympic style, right? I think this is something that it will probably be another topic in another video, because it's a really big topic right now because of just a lot of stuff that's happened with like Sajam and Maximilian, and people talking about like stuff we need more from fighting games and why we're so why we shouldn't be so apologetic. But something on my side is I think all fighting games should work on being cross-platform upon all platforms. Okay, there's no reason why you should be able to, why somebody from another platform can't play against another person because it's from a different platform. It separates a community that shouldn't be separated, and then and you hear a lot of stuff like, since I play Dragon Ball FighterZ a lot, the Switch community is dead. Like, there's nobody that plays the Switch community. Xbox is not nearly as popular. And if you want to play at a competitive, what people call a competitive high tier level, you play PS4. And if you can't do that, you play PC. But even then, PC isn't nearly as quote unquote great. So why do we have to run into those issues where it's like that? So I think when we're running into issues where we're getting into Olympics, we're getting into super like high tier levels of tournament play, we should also think about in-game, like, we can't separate players from other players. especially online. And that's why when they say they're going to run online, like an online, qualifiers, they're cross-play games. That's very genius because it helps. Anybody can play. But if you threw it up for like Dragon Ball or something,
you couldn't. It would have to be PS4. That's just the tournament standard. Unless they were willing to like go against the tournament standard, which you don't do.
No. Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we're doing Dragon Ball Fighter Z on the Switch. You're like,
Switch and PC only.
I guess I'm getting the Switch. I guess I'm getting it on Switch.
You can't do that.
You just can't, right? Like,
yep.
So when we're running into things like that, where online qualifiers are huge, especially when it comes down to high school leagues, right? When we're getting into high school leagues, it's important to know, like, if one high school is running a game on a certain system and another high school is running a game on a certain system, maybe it's just because of what happens, like what people have. Because a lot of times it's probably going to come down to, especially if it's clubs, like especially how we have it at our locals, you bring your own setup. So if somebody's setup is not the setup that somebody's setting up for in terms of whatever you're playing high school wise or maybe even college wise, how the hell are we going to play? How the hell are we going to like compete? So again, this is a completely like super off topic, but I think it is something to think about and to be addressed in that manner. Yeah.
Well, to kind of bring it back full circle, there's a couple of things that I think about when I hear this with Olympics. One, I hadn't thought about this before, but I do think, especially if enough people talk about it, is the idea of more fighting games being crossplay, more games in general, but especially fighting games, because our community is hard to grow in as it is. You know, I come across people like, I play MK. I do too. What are you playing on? Xbox. I'm like, crap. Okay, what are you playing on? PC. Dang it. You know, that's why I buy most of my games on like PS4 and PC if I'm trying to like take it somewhat serious, because it's like I want to run into people and train. And it's like, it sucks that I have to buy the game twice. Which is helping the developers, honestly, but it's not really helping the individual in the sense of like they're having to pay more money, and then also like segregating who they're talking to. They have to like switch between different communities, the platform switching between each other, and it's not that good. So I do think that might encourage more developers to be crossplay, if possible. You're probably not going to see too many switches on there, but PC, Xbox One, and PS4.
Those are the main, for sure.
Yeah. And then honestly, we're getting close to the new generations anyway. So I think they really need to push hard on that, because gamers are getting smarter. They're getting older. I'm 32 now, and we have gamers who are older than me, and that's like my age is average for gamers. It's like 25 to 35 is like the average gamer. You have the younger kids now because they're being born into it, but you have people like me that I'm not stupid. I know that you can do crossplay. I have a bachelor's degree in animation and game design. Like, don't try to fool me into thinking that it's beyond our technology. You're being greedy. It's totally possible. It just, you guys don't want to do it. And, I have been watching Sajam and Maximilian talk about this kind of stuff. And I do agree with it a lot. And that's why a lot of times I'll vote my wallet and I'll wait until games go on sale, because I'm not going to pay full price for a lot of these games. Street Fighter was a special exception for me because I really wanted to get in on it early, and I wanted to finally be decent at a fighting game. Like, my goal was to like hit gold and rank mode and start winning some tournaments. And I did both those things, and I got to set the bar higher now. But yeah, I knew getting into it, like, that was like, I'm not getting a $60 game. I'm getting an early access game that's being sold as a $60 game, but it's really early access. But I also see a couple different things in this, because I see that this could be a reoccurring thing. Like, I think that Rocket League and Street Fighter are the gateway drugs to, the gateway games, I'll say, to other games being exposed. Like, okay, well, that was actually pretty cool, but what other games do you have to like show me? Now they're willing to learn. Street Fighter is just a stable game. It's been like, everyone knows what Street Fighter is. You have health bars, you have characters like Ken and Ryu, and they throw fireballs out. Like, everyone, even non-gamers, know what that is. That's why that one made it, because of their legacy. Street Fighter 5 isn't the best of the Street Fighters. I can say that objectively. I think that a lot of people would agree with that. I love the game, but I know that I like it for a lot of different reasons, because I think it's helped me get better at a lot of other fighting games, and I'm also put a lot of time into it. But I understand, and I can see objectively why people don't think the game is good. A lot of times I disagree with those things, but that's besides the fact. The game has a legacy. It's been around since like the regular Nintendo. So, or Famicom, whatever you played on. So that's definitely why that got picked. And then what you're going to see happening is, every 2 years there's going to be tournaments, and it's easier to set up. And this is the big thing that I think is going to happen. I want to see the numbers of these two tournaments versus the Olympics from 2020, because I think there's a good chance they can rival the numbers of the Olympics, which I think is their main goal. That's why it's like basically a side tournament right now. And I think that potentially this could rival the numbers of the Olympics in terms of viewership. And I think that would be a huge blow and a reality check for people who do traditional Olympics, because no one will deny that their feats of athleticism are amazing, but not everybody wants to watch that. Some people want to watch people throw down in Street Fighter. People want to see people throw down in like Tekken or Hearthstone or League of Legends. They want to see that kind of stuff because that's the new thing. Those things are highly skilled. They're hard to do. They're impressive. They're more complex, and they're more relatable because these people have played those games and it's more accessible. Not everyone can play basketball and want to get all sweaty and do that, and do that every day and have an area to do that. But everyone can sit down on a computer if they can afford one and play some games or a console. So that's the biggest thing, is that the numbers are going to be really important to keep an eye on to see if they do it again next year. Look at the numbers of how much money is being paid out, because I think, again, $500,000 is very low. I think at the minimum they should have did $1 million and did $500,000 for both games. But I'm glad to see this is happening, because I think their goal is to get recognized by the Olympics and be like, hey, we can get the numbers. You just got to give us a chance. So that's where I see it going. And then also, a lot of the fighting game stuff to kind of like, this is FGC philosophy. I do want to see more improvements, online training mode. That's what I want. Online training for more games. MK has it, I think.
It's so simple. They do. Samsho has it too, and Samsho also has a lot of flaws itself. But they fixed a couple in these in a couple patches. But in another sense, I actually wanted to talk about something because I just reminded myself. So the key word, right, for this Olympic stuff is simple spectator, right? Games that are simple and are spectator friendly. If this is like what it's going to turn into, right? If it becomes a general populace like thing that people can just spectate, right? You turn it on and you could just watch it because it's simple, right? I think we might see a slight shift in terms of fighting games or 100%. Games in general that will make them more simpler and spectator friendly to appeal to the mass media. So, like, we got games like, I want to say, like, in terms of tag fighters, BlazBlue Cross Tag is easily, like, the most simple game. But that game is still, like, weirdly enough, it's crazy. It's unique, and I would say, like, in terms of jumping into a tag team fighter, it's definitely like my vote or my go-to for someone to jump into and start playing, because it's a lot easier to learn for sure. But it's still not spectator friendly because there's still so much going on, even though it's made to be simpler. It's literally like a 3-button fighter, quite like, well, 4-button, but you have 3 attack buttons and a switch button, and I guess you have your assist button. But like most of your buttons, you're literally pressing like 2 buttons. Like most of your attacks are literally like A, B, 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 C. Like that's it. And you're like, okay, so, and in that sense, the game is still not spectator friendly. It's still like, I played at a very casual level, like not that competitively serious. And when I watch like high tier tournaments, I'm like, what is happening? Like it gets that crazy, right?
I played the game in my locals, and when like Noah plays against me, I see the same exact thing. I'm like, what just happened? What are you doing?
What is happening?
It's
and
not.
Like,
it's
this
not
game
very
is meant
player
to be
friendly.
simple, I thought, right?
Yeah.
So
it's really not.
I would really like to see, and we've already seen a huge amount like of super simple games. We got games like Foot Dive. We got games like
Nidhogg.
Nidhogg's good. What was who's the guys that are developing the League of Legends fighting games? What game did they make?
Oh, it was like Blitz or something like that. I know you're talking about the robot fighting game.
Yeah, that game, super simple. So, and I know Corey made a really good video on this.
Rising Thunder.
Yep.
Got it.
Corey made a very good video about this, talking about like the level of simplicity in fighting games and how it can like add to how competitive it is and how many people like still can get into it. Especially like games like footsies. Like that game's pretty like super simple, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see what we can do in terms of a fighting game community to make simple games, a simple game that's still very like competitive and then also very spectator friendly. It's very difficult to do that just because we would have to rearrange everything of what fighting games already are. And fighting games at a base level are confusing. They're very scary to jump into as a newbie. And they're very difficult to get like a like good stand on it. And that can go for like a lot of hobbies. But fighting games in of itself, like Street Fighter V, I think it's honestly like one of the harder games to get into for sure, just because studying up on frame data is like scary. It's such like a scary thought to get into as a like casual player trying to get into it, right? Where it's like you got to learn like what can link and what like doesn't work and what's unsafe and what's safe, versus like playing, I don't know, Power Rangers.
Well, here's the thing with Street Fighter V though, is that like a lot of people that play Street Fighter say that Street Fighter is too simple. And it's interesting because I didn't get into competitive Street Fighter until Street Fighter 4. And I thought Street Fighter 4 was too complicated for me to just hop into it. I got into it, during the Ultra. So I like the tail end of Street Fighter 4. And I go back and forth with people about this all the time because I think that Street Fighter V is a complicated game, but the people who've been playing fighting games for years, it's like really simplistic. And it's, I understand their frustration with the game. And I think there's things that can be done to be improved. And they've been doing those things, some of those things. But I also think that there has to be some form of simplicity to the game. And there is some simplicity to it. And it is also very still complex and very executionally demanding in certain things, which is easier to do because it doesn't need to be like people got mad when they took out plinking. There's no reason for you to have to do a exploit in a game to get an extra frame to do something, because that wasn't really even originally intended. Like, do
you want to describe plinking to casuals?
So a quick definition of plinking is basically in Street Fighter 4 and other fighting games, you can press two buttons really fast in rapid succession, and it'll trick the game into thinking that you're pressing three buttons. And there's something about that when you're doing it, it gives you an extra frame to attack. So basically, you can do certain combos that you normally wouldn't be able to do because it's just physically impossible to do those combos unless you or it's very, very hard to do those combos unless you give yourself that extra frame, that extra window of time to do that combo. So basically you're doing something that's physically or executionally challenging to create an exploit that gives you an advantage over people who have a harder time doing those certain things. Whereas in Street Fighter V, they have it to where there's a buffer. So they automatically give you those extra frames that you normally would have to do that exploit to get. And some people are upset about that because it makes it harder or it makes it easier for people to do. And I think that's kind of bonkers personally. I do like to respect a high level of skill, but that's something that's unnecessarily hard for no reason. And there was a glitch. Like that wasn't intended. So now they just made it easier to do that. It's still hard. You still have like 3 frames to do something and you have to time it properly. You just have to do it with more discipline. You don't need to like press like a couple of buttons to make it happen that way. So it's kind of crazy. There's things like that, option selects where you can do multiple things by doing some sort of input, and depending on what happens, you do 1 or 2 things based off of what your opponent does, which makes it easier for you to deal with multiple situations. And again, that's kind of confusing and really hard to illustrate for casual observers. People who don't play the game aren't going to pick that up. And I think that having the game still be very complicated and having the game be very in depth, having the game be something that takes time to play. You can't just win on pure luck. There's there's not enough RNG for you to be able to win. You still have to be disciplined in the game, and have enough variety. Like people complain about you can use these 3 buttons with Karine and win, stuff like that isn't good. But if you're able to play the game, pick it up pretty simply, but the skill ceiling, Smash Brothers is another great example. It's actually really simple to pick up the game once you sit down and play it. Spectating is a different story, but once you actually get into the competitive side of things, it gets harder and harder and harder, and you have to do more and more things. So it's a game that's really simple to pick up, but has a high skill ceiling because of how in-depth the game is. So it's like people getting into it can have fun, feel satisfied. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of single player or party options to keep people entertained, which is like the whole arcade mode scenario fiasco that happened with Street Fighter V when it didn't come out initially with it and it came out later on as DLC. So that's kind of my mindset with it, is that like people say that Street Fighter V is really simple. Obviously you say that it's really hard, and clearly there is a gap of understanding where people who play the game think it's easy, and then newbies getting into it are like, this is really hard. I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do. But it's a really simple game. You see it, your health bar goes down, you lose. You have some extra meter, which gives you enhanced moves. Is very straightforward. You glow yellow and you flash. You see they use a meter, it goes away. You do a get off me move, they get off of you. You do a super, it freezes to do an animation and do some big damage, and you kind of understand the bar is gone. Like everything is very self-explanatory. Whereas like Tekken or Guilty Gear, Roman cancels.
God, no, not Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear is, as a spectator, even though I understand the game at a very base level, it's still so incredibly confusing as a spectator to watch.
Yeah.
But to add on to kind of like plinking, so there's actually kind of a thing going on right now in the Smash community about L canceling. Actually, this is the Project M community specifically. So for people who don't know what L canceling is, whenever this is only in Melee and Project M, anytime you do an aerial move and you land on the ground, you have ending lag, and that ending lag is normal. Whatever, you can't do a move until you're back to after you're done recovering. So L canceling reduces that amount of time by a very vast amount. So anytime you do an aerial move, right before you land, I believe it's so weird. It's 5 frames. It's 5 frames before you land. If you hit L or R, it will reduce your recovery time by a large amount. And in terms of learning the game competitively, you need to learn how to L cancel because it increases your play by a large amount. Now, the thing that's interesting right now, especially specifically with the Project M community, is when the Project M devs made the game, they added a setting in the game that was auto L cancel. So very interesting thing where right now people in Canada, I believe it's Canada, they've legalized using auto L cancel, and their reasoning is because it's a thing that among top tier players, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make you a better player because you're already L canceling. It doesn't make you an already better person. And it's a skill ceiling between people who are not as good and people who are good in between. If they don't L cancel, then they're worse. And if they do L cancel, then they're good. But people who are already L canceling are at the same level, and it doesn't change whether or not you're better, right? So it's become a level of a discussion where should we turn on auto L cancel because it doesn't change the fact of that making you a better player because you can L cancel. And that's a very interesting topic in that sense where it's something that could be added on for a new player to just learn and make it more difficult for someone who's new, while people who are already playing the game, it's something that they just do already, and it doesn't change of what how the game goes on. So all in all, it's just as a spectator, you don't know about that. If you watch Melee, you have no idea that people are L canceling constantly, and if you see their their cam for their controllers, they're mashing the fuck out of their controller because they're constantly short hop L canceling. So it's an interesting topic to bring in newer players by making the game more simple in a fact where it takes out something that's unnecessarily difficult. So yeah, like taking out plinking and taking out L canceling where it's already automatic. It does it for you. It's cool though. It's an interesting topic that I like to discuss, and I've definitely discussed it with Darcy for a bit too. And she agrees just turning it on is completely fine because it doesn't make you a better player automatically. It just makes it like less difficult for you to come in as a newcomer.
Yeah, it's a hard conversation to have. I don't want to delve too much into it right now, but I am very fascinated by this because I can see both sides of the fence and like, argue one way and play devil's advocate. And that can be something we talk about in the future. I'll also talk to Darcy tomorrow, so I'll see them. So yeah, that said, before we head out, what do you got going on, if anything? And then, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you and talk to you?
I'm working on a couple of projects right now for Dragon Ball FighterZ, some character videos. I'm thinking about changing up my how my videos are done, but it's a project in the making. But you can find me on youtube.com/megamaxstar. Look at it for anything DBFZ tutorial wise, and that's about it for me.
Cool. Okay. Well, on that note, I'm the Philosopher. Best way to reach me right now, I would say, is probably Twitter or Facebook. Twitter.com/the Philosopher. We're at the Philosopher. You can find me on there. It's just Tavian Napier on Facebook. There's not too many of those running around, so you should be able to find me pretty easily. Biggest thing for me right now is we have a Smash tournament coming up. If you're in the Michigan area, we got Bronco Beatdown coming on. So I'm really excited for that one. If you are interested in becoming a volunteer, because I'm trying to get as many people to get experience in it. I think we have enough people for it right now, but people fall through, life happens, so I understand. But casters, bracket judges, I guess that's the normal name. I call them TOs, but bracket judge, I guess, is like the esports name for it, perhaps, or the Smash name. I'm not sure. But yeah, so you can go to wesports.com, check that out. Make sure you guys, let me know what you think about this whole situation when it comes to, esports growing, growing in a educational way, and then also growing just worldwide to the point to where now it's alongside the Olympics. This is really exciting for us to see, so I really would love to know what your thoughts are on all of this. So make sure you hit me up. If you don't want to leave comments down below, Facebook, I've got a lot of people hit me up on Facebook, and I really appreciate that you guys motivate me. I'm really excited about that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that I listen to a lot of audiobooks, right? And I've been listening to Ready Player One, and this is related to gaming. And it's, man. Okay, so I really, really like this book. This is like the 5th time or 6th time I'm listening to this audiobook. It's ridiculous. It's voiced by Will Wheaton. And if you guys saw the movie, I'm sorry. Because I hate to be one of those guys, but the book was so much better. At least the audiobook. It's voiced by Will Wheaton. So it's really great. Point being, if that's something that you've been interested in, you can get the book for free and also a free month of Audible if you go to taviannapier.com/audible. That helps me out as well, full disclosure. But I have been listening to audiobooks almost every day for the last, since 2012. How many years is that? 6 years? 7 years? Something like that. So it's a good number of years. So it's something that I've been using personally. It's the only really thing that I plug at this point, but it's something that I use it mostly for person development. Ready Player One is the only nonfiction book that I actually have, the non-person development book, until I get the Harry Potter ones. That's probably my next thing, is Harry Potter audiobook, because I hear that's really good. Nonetheless, I digress. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. This has been a wild ride. I'm looking at trying to get more content going. It's hard to figure out the schedule and everything, but I really appreciate the people who do reach out to me. You guys keep me motivated and make me want to make more content and work harder in the world of competitive gaming / esports. So that said, thank you guys so much, and I will see you all in the next one.